Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Aiden, from Cartoon Apocalypse, and welcome back to Turner Tuesday. Now today, we didn't exactly do what I had planned, but it was a good stream because we did figure out how we're actually gonna do magic. And in case you weren't aware, that's what we did this stream, is we did magic stuff. And as far as what we're doing next week, we are going to be talking about the side characters. Now we don't know exactly which ones, probably Sky, but yeah, that's just what we left it up to. So as always, time codes are down in the description, and I'm not going to be cutting like this every single time. There will be a couple cuts, but that's about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and hop right into this first section. Now the first two things that we do is talk about elemental and personal magic. So there will be time code splitting them, but no intermission section. So there are two categories of magic. There's elemental magic and there's personal magic, okay? So let me just go ahead and describe these two first, because I think it's important that we all understand exactly what these are. So elemental magic is sort of what we had as an idea for magic at the very beginning. I think we had originally said in the original document that there was like 5 different classes maybe, for example, and those were fire, water, earth, air, and space, which have stayed the same in this current pitch. So that's sort of the elemental side. Now here's the thing with elemental magic. That is passed down. That is like a normal body function for everybody on Ilaria. So anyone can do it on Ilaria. It's not restricted by anything. It's passed down by your parents. So say for example, Luna's father had water magic and Luna's mother had I was about to say ice, but that's not a thing. Fire magic, for example. Luna can choose one of those. Well, okay, there was actually some debate on that. I think you should be able to choose between the two. Mr. Fruit thinks that it should just be random and based on the first spell that you choose. So I don't know, we'll have to talk about that. But anyway, you get one of those two abilities, and also I didn't come up with this idea, but there's 2 different variations of elemental magic. There's creation and manipulation, which I'm still like a bit iffy on this, but I can understand where it comes from, and I think it's an interesting idea. So creation is basically you can create things like, well, in each category. So like for fire example here, there's a creation category and a manipulation category, right? And sort of the way that you choose this, well, we also have to talk about this. I think it should be, well, actually, I can see both sides of the argument for this, but the 2 different options are, like, if somebody, say Luna's father, for example, had fire creation, one of the options is that Luna inherits fire creation, or she chooses between fire, or it depends on like the environment and sort of stuff. Because is it written here? I don't think that paragraph got copied over here. But the way that, or the other way is that the way that you choose between creation and manipulation is depending on sort of where you're born. So if you're born in a desert where there is no water and you need water, that's why you would become like a creation water magic person, because you need water so you can create it yourself. Whereas if you have a lot of water, like if you are born next to a river or a lake, that water is already there for you, so you could be able to manipulate that already existing water. So that's the 2 different things. That's sort of the creation and manipulation. So elemental magic, just it's like a part of your body, and it's not like anything extra. It's just everybody can do it, nothing really special. It's just there's different kinds of it. It's like hair color, for example. Like I have like a dirty blonde hair color, some people have ginger hair color, some people have full blonde, some people have brown, black, etc. Everybody's a little bit different. Well, everybody has a certain like type of hair color. Now, personal magic is really interesting, and I actually really like personal magic because it ties really well into sort of this whole bonding idea. So personal magic is a bond that you create with an object and maybe a concept. It depends sort of on what we decide. We're still talking about it as far as if a concept makes sense and what concepts would sort of look like. We're still talking about it. You can choose a reasonably sized object to sort of create a bond with, and if bonding sounds familiar, that's sort of that's the point here, because that's sort of what the show is based around. So I thought that worked really well. Now, the object that you bond with can't be like super big, so it can't be like a car sized, but if I wanted it to be this water bottle, it could be this water bottle, or this notebook, for example. Whoa! So yeah, it could just be things like that. And okay, so originally we had said that it couldn't be like complex objects, like it could only be like a slab of metal, but that doesn't make sense. So we changed it to just be depending on size, and maybe we'll change it to mass, I'm not sure. But changing it to mass would be kind of weird, because, yeah, I don't know. I think size is probably the best option. So what you can do sort of depends on the object. Now this description might actually be a little bit outdated because last minute we sort of changed the idea. Now personal magic, I had originally thought of it as like sort of another category of magic, but it's more of like a power-up ability. So, or like a support item, power-up ability, those two kind of things. So it's like you got the normal people with elemental magic, and then on top of that, you have people who specialize with something. So, for example, let's just tie this into Luna and Nico here, right? They are eventually, we don't know specifically when, maybe the end of season 1, maybe 2, I don't know. They're going to bond together with this red ribbon, okay? Now that's going to count as their personal bond, and I don't think I mentioned this here, but you can only have one personal bond at a time, and the bond can break. Like if this notebook breaks, the bond is broken. So, well, it's not entirely broken. If it breaks, your soul is still intact. It uses some of your soul. When you create a bond, it like allocates a part of your soul for that bond. At least that's how I envisioned it. So then, well, that might actually be an outdated thing, because that's sort of, yeah, I don't know. We'll have to talk about that some more. So, when it breaks, your soul is fine. The reason why, if you rip pages out of a notebook that the king owns, he has it set up to where, like, if you rip out a page, he has it set up to where that soul, that bit of your soul, goes back to him. And it doesn't get returned back to you, it gets turned back to him. So that's sort of where, like, I don't know a good way to explain how he set that up. It's just, well, I guess since it's a shared bond, he can do that. Actually, that makes, not, that, okay. We'll have to think about that later. That's for another topic. This is slowly going worse and worse, I feel like, because I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, I don't think. Okay. So, let's do an example. Let's go back to that ribbon thing, right? This was originally pitched as like a stupid idea, but red ribbon magic, I actually love it now, okay? So it's Luna and Nico's red ribbon. Since they're bonded to a red ribbon, and that bond is shared between them, they each have red ribbon magic as well as their elemental magic. So we talked about how Luna would have water magic, and then Nico would most likely have fire. That was just sort of the thing that everybody went with. So what they could do with this ribbon is it's like a support item. They don't have to use it. They can still use elemental magic. But this ribbon, they have control over the ribbon, and they can, so for example, it's like they can unwind it and then, like, I don't know, my vision of this, we're still talking about it, but my vision is that you could turn it into like a ribbon blade. So then you could have a sword. But then couldn't you just do that with water if you had water creation magic? So I don't know. That's sort of what we're going to be discussing today, is if like the different abilities that different magic power has, different elemental magic has, and sort of what personal magic can do. That's what I wanted to do today, but I wanted to set this groundwork here. Yeah, okay, so a ribbon whip too, that would work. And then, in my idea, and I think this would be pretty cool, is if you could control the movement, like if you could just make this ribbon fly throughout the air, you could turn it into, I don't know if any of you guys have seen, I sent the video yesterday. What was it called? It was Guardians of the Galaxy, that's what it was. The guy, the blue guy with the arrow, where he whistled and then the arrow, I think that's sort of what you could probably do with it. Now, I'm thinking since it's like a bond between two people, you could have a range extender so that way it could go further, but I want range limits so that way stuff like this isn't super OP. There should be a reason why people don't do personal bonds, and that's why it's more of a night thing to do. And there should be a reason of why knights do personal bonds over just keeping elemental magic. That way there's a reason for the personal bonds, but also a reason that everyday people choose to stay away from them. So the next thing we do is sort of talk about how average people use magic, and then how knights sort of use magic, and sort of why having elemental magic is so important. So for hypothetical sake, I'm just gonna use a level system. And this level system is simply just gonna be so that we can understand the power ranking of people, okay? Don't take, this system isn't actually a thing and we haven't developed it yet, so just chill out for a second. But my idea is that most people in Ellaria don't do too much magic. They go up to like level 2, for example, which is a low level. So they know how to do, the basic like water ball, or they can, summon like a little stream of water to water their plants, do a refill on water in a cup or something like that. But they don't know how to do like these large lake-sized things, although I don't know if anybody could really do that. Maybe like the king could do that, but that'd probably be a super high level kind of thing. Point is, everyday people don't really do too big of things, right? Fire users probably use their magic to light lanterns. And maybe there's maybe like a fire bit, like a lighting business, where it's like they just have a bunch of people who specialize in using their magic to do lighting. So that's all they do their magic for, is just lighting. Magic in Ellaria is supposed to enhance the world, and so Ellarians, I don't know if that's the official name for it, but Ellarians use magic in their everyday life, but it's not like they're using it to do fighting. It's not battles. That's for knights and monsters, I guess. So, fire users would light up the town, water users would help water plants and stuff like that, do refills on water, I don't know. And then air users, air conditioning in the summer, although I don't know if there is a summer there, we'll have to talk about it. Earth could help plants grow, they could do farming, stuff like that, because I sort of want to change some of these things, like sand, mud. I think that might be a little bit pushing it too far, but maybe not, I don't know. And then, yeah, so just overall, there's different applications in Ellaria that people can use magic. And that's why it's so interesting. And that's why elemental magic is a good thing, because it enhances the town. And in a society where they have more modern, like, they don't have what we have in humanity today, but they have sort of close equivalence. That'd be in a blooper reel right there. Equivalence stuff there. So for example, a refrigerator. They could have that in Ellaria, it just wouldn't be electrical since they don't have electricity on Ellaria, okay? But they can still have a box that maybe like a refrigerator corporation goes around and delivers ice to every day. And it's just, well, okay. I don't know if we're actually doing ice. We'll have to talk about that more as far as like what all elemental magic can do, which is sort of what I wanted to talk about today, but I wanted to sort of lay the groundwork, so that's what we're doing right now. Okay. So, yeah, that's the different application, and that's why elemental magic is important, because if we didn't have elemental magic and everybody was just, you know, having different random assets and different kinds of magic and like a different kind of magic per person, they couldn't base their society around it. So that's why we sort of wanted elemental magic in the first place. Does that make sense? Next thing that we do is talk about sort of how creation and manipulation types of magic differ and sort of how spells play into that. So yeah, this is a long one. That sort of brings up the question, what spells could manipulators do? That's because like manipulation sort of just seems like, oh, I can make things move. Which is sort of why I was on the boat to where they should be combined into one, so that water users are just water users. They can do anything a creation person and an alteration person can do, or a manipulation person. I say alteration. That was sort of one of my arguments, but I don't think I brought that up when we were actually having this discussion, which is something that I should have done. So explain to me sort of what kind of spells manipulations users could actually do. Because the manipulation people wouldn't get spells. Creation people could get cool spells like Water Dome. But a water manipulationist, I mean, I guess you could manipulate already existing water, but that wouldn't be a spell. Manipulators can do spells that creators can do, but only if there's a source. If you think it's unfair to manipulators, then they can handle larger amounts. So then, okay, so let's say for example we did use Water Dome, right? A creation person could just say Water Dome. Does the Water Dome, how would that work? How do spells work? Well, yeah, creators have manipulation, but not to the extent that manipulation people do, which again is like, well, what's the point in having two different ones? Which is sort of why I'm sort of on the boat of having them all be combined into one, because it's less confusing. And yeah, so if I'm creating a Water Dome and I have the creation tag on the water magic, does that mean I like create the ball in my hands and then it's like I manipulate that water ball that I create and then send that water around a target? Or is it like I cast Water Dome and then the Water Dome just appears above somebody? Because if the creators get to create where it is, which they should be able to, then in theory you could just create the Water Dome. But alteration users or manipulation users wouldn't have that luxury, so they would have to take water from a lake and be like, okay, water, I send you to go around, which isn't really a spell, that's more of just a command. To like say, oh, I want the water to go around here. That doesn't feel like a spell. Creators have to create and manipulate. Manipulators can manipulate more, but they need a source. If they were combined, it would be 2 OP. So then, what are spells? Are spells just different ways of manipulating things? Well, yeah, there's definitely going to be a limit on how much creators can create. Well, spells aren't necessarily spoken, I was just like giving an example. Spells are just different ways of using that power. Well, then you couldn't really call them spells, could you? You wouldn't really call these spells, they would just be different ways of of using the magic, right? Fire Creeper creates a small ember that attacks a target, engulfing them in flames upon contact. That's interesting. So are there spells or not? Yeah, I don't know. I guess we sort of need to decide if this system is going to be only like manipulation based. Spells in a typical spell setting is like something I cast magic, insert magic blast here. Whereas the elemental magic is more of just controlling. So we need to decide, and I think I already know what the answer is going to be, if we are having spells or if it's just like I'm manipulating this water. Because if you're just manipulating this water, I guess spell names would just be for people who like want to sound dramatic, like fireball, even though it's just you taking a bit of fire and moving it. It's not like it's an actual spell, it's just something that you call a certain move. So we need to decide if spells are actually a thing or if you could just alter it. Because if spells are actually a thing, then it would be like creation people can only do these spells, where alteration people could sort of mimic the spells, but they're not the same. If it's a spell, you'll have to focus. So I could see, I guess if we had actually added spells, it would make more sense for the divide between creation and manipulation, because maybe creation would only be able to do spells. So maybe creation people, they can't alter what they've created. Like the certain spells that they have do certain things. And if you cast fireball, you create the fire and then you cast it in a certain direction, but you can't alter that fireball beyond that. So that would be a spell, like a shot of fire. Whereas a manipulation user wouldn't have access to the spells, but they could mimic the spells, but they would need to have a fire source that, like, they would have to have fire already with them to be able to sort of mimic a fireball. Okay, well, the fire manipulators would only be able to use natural fire, unless if the fire creators allowed a fire manipulator to use their magic. That's sort of an option that they get. That's what you're saying, Grapefruit. So that's sort of what you want the difference between the two to be. I could be fine with that. So then, I guess, like, for example, a water creation user could make a water ball, and that could be pretty much the extent. And then you could, like, I suppose just drop the water ball, but you couldn't move it. And I guess maybe a spell would be like a water stream, and you could have a water stream spell where it's like you're casting a water stream and it waters the plants or whatever. Now, a water manipulator can't create a water ball, but they can take a cup and make the water in that cup form into a water ball. Okay, I can go with that. That makes sense. I like that. Okay, so then that would mean that we can use these spells, because these would be for the creation user, whereas the alteration user could sort of like make a makeshift version of some of these, but it wouldn't be exact. And I also think the spells should be able to have conditions set on them. So, like, for example, this fire creeper, a small ember that tracks the target, engulfing them in flames upon contact. That is an example of a good spell because it's sort of that. Whereas a manipulation user wouldn't be able to do that because they can't manipulate, they can't turn like a small little ember into a giant flame. They have to take that whole flame over to the person. So you know what? I like this idea. So this final thing that we talk about is sort of just how other species can use magic. I don't think we ever wrote it down in here, did we? No. Okay, so basically different species have different abilities that they can do. So, like, for example, dragons, I don't know about Luna, but like full dragons, they can like breathe their element. Like, you could breathe fire, you could breathe water. I don't know how you would breathe earth. You could breathe gusts of air. You could breathe space. I don't even know how that would work, but yeah, that's it for this video. If you did enjoy, you can leave a like and subscribe for more content similar to this. As always, just a reminder, I stream every Sunday 1:30 p.m. EST to 3:30 p.m. EST. It's a lot of fun. Come join, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.